Hello, everyone. I am Judah Bernard with The Rise Creating Your Voice. I am the wisdom dialoguer and the motivational warrior of The Rise Creating Your Voice. I have here two beautiful women, and we're going to talk about handprints from mother to daughter. We have Miss Keisha Carter and Simone Carter, which is a mother-daughter duo. And we just want to welcome them to the Rise Creating Your Voice podcast. When we talk about handprints from mother to daughter, there's a disclaimer out here that we're going to be talking about different situations in which this mother and daughter connected and have some disconnection too as well. But understand in the handprints that they continue to have each other's heartbeat and that it contributes to the pinky, to the index, to the middle finger, to the ring finger, and to the thumb, that all of these things do connect with their heartbeats. So understand, this is a part of communication right here. It's putting those hands together, in which we should know that this is also praying too. And this is a challenge to God in praying. Now I'm going to introduce to some and present to others, Keisha Carter and Simone Carter. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you for having us, Mr. Judah.
We want to just be honest and well open with handprints from mother to daughter. Understand that situations happen and things do happen in life. But understand, let's give just a synopsis of why we're here on The Rise Creating Your Voice.
You want to go first? Okay. So we're here today to really talk to this live audience about mother-daughter relationships and dealing with mental health issues that arise. And we feel like, especially during this time of COVID and people being isolated, mental health has become a lot more important. And so we're really here to share our story and our individual stories as mother and daughter, because sometimes those relationships can be very loving, but a bit challenging. And we just want people to know that there are people out there to help, that you can talk to, who do understand, who do love you. And we just want to provide as much information as we can to individuals who may be struggling.
And understand these are professional women and young girl. I have to call Simone a young girl since it's mother and daughter. I can't say two professional women. So you know the difference. And I want us to understand that, Simone, if you have something that you might want to say that elicit this conversation too as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just to second everything my mom was saying, we're here to discuss our relationship, the trials and tribulations that we've gone through. As far as my mental health has been concerned, my mom's mental health has been concerned, and just the bond that we've shared. And as you mentioned earlier, the connect as well as the disconnect, which is one of the most important things that people often don't like to speak about, because it can be kind of hard to talk about that disconnect that you experience.
And I love that, how we use that connect and disconnect. That's sort of like right and wrong. It's either one or it's the other. And I think what our listeners need to know, what is that specific connection that you guys had? And any one of you guys can go.
I would say from birth, obviously for me, there was a connection. My daughter is my only child. And I do remember telling her as young as she was, I don't know, even a baby, that your mom is going to always be your best friend, right?
Oh, wow.
Always going to have your best interests at heart. You're going to encounter so many people in this world who, some will love you, but some will not. Some will hate you. Some will like you. Some will, be enemies potentially to you. But at the end of the day, our connection is always strong. I was just telling her last night that you came from me. You came from my womb.
Yes.
No matter what, we may argue, we may fight. The struggle has been very real, but you're still my daughter and I still love you. From just a parent and now trying to be, a better mentor to my daughter, the connection is always going to be strong, no matter what she does, although it doesn't give her a pass to just do bad things or not so great things, but no matter what she does, she's always going to be my first love.
And understand that first love being that that's the daughter and things like that. Simone, do you have anything about your connection with your mom too as well?
Yeah, I would say so my mom had me a little bit younger than some of my peers' parents had them. She was 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like because of that, it allowed us to be a little bit closer than maybe
Right.
she has a certain level of understanding towards me that perhaps people from, the baby boomer generation wouldn't have for a millennial because of our age difference and because of um, just the way that she raised me and how open she allowed me to be, even when I was a teenager and we experienced those moments of disconnect. My mom has always encouraged me to think of her as a friend as well as my mother. Of course, she's my mother first. She provided for me growing up and everything, made sure I had all the things that I needed, the tools I needed to succeed. But at the end of the day, she's a friend because she's someone that I can go to. She's someone that I can open up to. And she's someone that I can just be myself with. And I feel like that's a very important characteristic in a mother-daughter relationship that I'm very grateful that we have with ours.
Okay, and totally agree with that because I think mother and daughter relationships, and for those who are coming in, we have Keisha Carter and also Simone Carter, who is mother and daughter. And we're talking about some mental health issues that may have caused some disconnect within their lives, but understand in putting together and communicating how just communication alone can bring forth and start erasing some of those bad behaviors you learn from different areas because then again, we have so many in society that give us all this feed into our spirits, and then we just erupt. And then we just know what's going on. What's the biggest problem? So now we want to get to the disconnect, knowing that some things happen where the relationship ruptured. So anybody can go, what happened in that disconnect where that relationship didn't seemingly? I understand it probably happened around preteen or something like that, or something where we didn't agree anymore.
Yeah. Do you want to start? Or do you want me?
You mean like a moment of disconnect that we've had?
Yes.
Or when did it start?
When did it start? I know I said about 3 or 4 questions in that. You can start with when it started. Tell your story. Just be free and tell your story.
Okay, so I can say my daughter has always been a powerful being. She had a powerful voice even from birth. I remember being in a hospital in Germany and her cry was so distinct that I was like, there's my child, there's my child. Even when they took her away and she was down the hall. And so growing up, it was a bit, I would say tumultuous only because, I was married to her father and at a young age we got divorced. And so we traveled quite a bit. We were in the military stationed in Germany and Japan. And so at some point in her early life, me and her father weren't together. So that put, some issues there in terms of, raising her. And then as time moved forward, we eventually got back to the States. Things were going pretty smooth, but I can say that as time went on, I did start noticing some things with my daughter, some sadness, which I thought was around her father not necessarily being right there. He spent a lot of time overseas, so couldn't necessarily physically be there, but then he was also somewhat out of touch for a time. And so I choked it up to, okay, well, she's sad, she's missing her father. Let me go ahead and get a counselor for her. So I think around the age of 7, we were living in Texas and I had her seeing someone at that point. Then we transitioned moving forward and, we moved to the Maryland area. Things were, going kind of okay, or going pretty well, actually. My mom was here helping out with my daughter. And then, things were going pretty smooth. But I did notice some things with my daughter, but a lot of times as a parent, especially when they hit that 10, 11, their menstrual cycle is starting, you think it's just the mood swings based off the hormonal changes. And so you're just like, okay, you're kind of just going with that. Then moving towards the preteen years, things started getting a little bit more tumultuous. My daughter started cutting. And for those of you in our audience who don't know what cutting is, it's something that young kids get into when they're trying to self-harm because maybe they're trying to avoid situations from the past or pain that they've experienced in the past. And so they do so by taking instruments to harm themselves. And in the case of my daughter, I think she was cutting her fingers. And at that point, we had a counselor. We had gotten enrolled in a Montgomery County program where she was able to get a therapist. And I know, you know, I was bringing up things like this. And so initially as a parent, and I'll tell you guys out there that I responded in a pretty negative way. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? You know, like, stop it, don't, you know, why are you cutting yourself? You're gonna, you know, get a bacterial infection and all these different things. But I do remember specifically a counselor telling me that you can't do that. You have to have a place of compassion and empathy, because if you do that, you will push your child away. So the best thing you can do is to say to her, hey, love, I have some Neosporin and some Band-Aids. If you do decide to cut yourself, please come to mommy. Please let mommy know. That way we can take care of it and make sure you get some good Band-Aids and things like that. So
and let me stop you right there, Keisha. But at that particular time when that therapist told you that, you thought pretty much like anyone else would, why should I have to do that? That's my child.
Right, I did, because it's like, I don't want to see my daughter hurt. I don't want her hurting at all. I think I just told her the other day, one of my biggest regrets is not being with her father, because I think that had a tremendous impact on her life, you know, and just the fact that I think that kids deserve a two-parent household. Now, oftentimes that doesn't happen, but they do. So when that therapist told me that, I definitely backed down. I think Simone could tell you, but the cutting did progress. It progressed in other areas of her body. And so at that point, I knew some things were really not right. And so
this is when I was about 15.
Yeah, going on 15.
My sophomore year of high school.
Yeah, going on 15. And so maybe Simone can take it from here. I have lots of different names for her. So, I know she goes by Simone, but you'll hear me say Coe and Takoa. But, you know, I think that I started really noticing some things probably earlier on, but then more significant things probably when she was around 11, I would say. So then, like I said, things progressed. And when we hit the, you know, sort of the 8th grade and then really went into high school, it really started going downhill. And maybe Takoa can jump in and talk a little bit about what was going on in your teen years.
And this is the time, Simone, that you can really just tell mom, if you haven't had that conversation, of what really happened at 7. If that was really happened, that the absent father, that you were missing him, this is the time for you to tell your true feelings of what happened.
Yeah, I want to add one thing. I want parents to be aware of this. My daughter used to always say she didn't want to be here, even from a younger age. And you kind of just are like wondering what that's about, because you don't understand really why a kid that young would say they don't want to be here. And I do remember, I think, watching like an Oprah episode back in the day when we
stop watching Oprah. No, I'm just playing.
Oh yeah, we started realizing 9 and 10-year-olds were taking their own lives. And it became a phenomenon, right? You had all these young people who were, and it wasn't even necessarily bullying per se.
Right.
Bullying does play a role, but you started having all these young kids just taking their life. And so I didn't necessarily put the 2 and 2 together and really understand why she would say, I just don't want to be here. Like, I want to be a baby again. I don't want to be here. But I want to encourage parents, when a child tells you that, pay attention, get them help. Don't just think about it, because it definitely means something. And I know in hindsight, if I had maybe done something differently, maybe we could have gotten a different type of help a little bit sooner. But I just wanted to throw that out. I do remember her saying that.
And Keith, I'm gonna do this too as well, because sometimes we have to go even further in religion. It's because those people that claim that God is this, and I'm a firm believer in God. But then again, when we have things on earth here, we go and say, well, let's pray about it. And we don't start defining the problem. We think that it's an instant, oh, we pray about it, it's gonna be over with.
Right, absolutely. You have to,
and that's not how it goes.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if Simone didn't have the desire to come out of that, praying to God will not make it happen.
Yeah.
Simone has to have that desire.
Definitely. Definitely. It's all.
So, you know, and that's what I know a lot of church going people do. Well, I know this ain't supposed to happen to you because God, da, 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 and da. And then you're still stuck at Simone cutting herself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was raised, my sister and I, hopefully she's on the podcast.
Yes, she is. CP Peterson, yeah. Shout out.
Yeah, we were in church 7 days a week. We were raised Pentecostal.
Yes.
And so I instilled religion into my daughter, but I embraced, you know, everyone's religion, whether you were Jewish or Muslim,
right,
or, you know, whatever you Catholicism, we didn't like hold back from that. But if my daughter had could really understand what my sister and I went through as kids, going to church 7 days a week, you know, so I will say that I did incorporate, you know, definitely some meditation and prayer and just trying to understand, but it's that along with action. You have to take
right. But in that, Simone, and be honest in your personal feelings, did going to church 7 days a week assist you?
Not for me. And I was taking her to church for a while. We were
right
because the thing pretty hard.
Right. The thing is, you weren't even receiving the word because you was too worried about Simone.
Yeah.
So why were you going? Because the thing is, it's a unity. And if Simone is not getting fed and you're not getting fed by worrying with Simone, how is church working for y'all?
Yeah, I would say, I think the first time we visited some churches in Germany, but I'd say the first time she probably could really remember going to church was in Japan. And wow. She was a lot younger. And then once we got back to the States, we did visit some churches when she was probably, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10. But, you know, you relied upon a church, especially being in the military, because, you know, I wanted to make sure that I still brought that spirituality into our relationship in general, but just having a relationship with your higher being. And I wanted her to understand that. So that faith, as well as, you know, actually physically going to get help, is what people have to incorporate into life. Like, God doesn't want us to sit idly by while, you know, terrible things are happening. You have to, right? You have to be that person who actually takes some action behind that. So I'll let her kind of start off from, you know, what her memories were in terms of like where she started really feeling things.
And let me give you guys some facts. Just let me go off on the side, because let me tell you something.
Okay.
Back in the olden days, or the golden days, people that had those type of issues would be put in an asylum.
Yes.
And they would do all these shock therapies and all this other stuff, drown them in tubs and all that stuff to make them fear or become a better person. That's not how this goes, people. It's just not how it goes. So even sometimes people say, well, we want to put you on the right regimen. The thing is, the right regimen is that person has to have the desire to come out of that.
Yeah.
That person has to really realize what's going on. And I'm glad that we're at this moment, because those handprints matter. Because once we lose those handprints and those heartbeats are no longer going, nothing can happen.
Yeah.
Until we unite. So go ahead, Simone.
I don't even know where to begin.
Take your time.
I guess her intuition was pretty accurate. It started around 10, actually, 9 or 10, I think, when we first moved to the Maryland area. That's the first time I remember feeling, that's the first time actually that I looked at a razor and about doing something to myself. But at that time, I didn't pick it up because I was too, I don't know exactly what I was feeling. I just know it's not something that I knew it wasn't good for me. So I didn't do it then. I know I had a lot of feelings of loneliness, even that young, even at the age of 10, 11, and 12. I had a decent amount of friends, especially in middle school. I went to a performing arts school that was a pretty good school that kind of sets you up to really tap into yourself, connect with yourself, and connect with others. So between my education and my mom, I feel like there was a lot of pressure on me. My mom wanted me to do well, you know, because she wants to set me up for success. And then I'm at this performing arts school that expects you to do, you know, these amazing things. And I just started feeling like it was too much. And I remember being 15 and just kind of sitting at my desk and being very just tired. I got to a point where I just started feeling tired. And that's when my mom noticed. And that's when I first started actually self-harming. I think for me personally, it was an escape. And now everybody does it for different reasons. I can't speak for every single person that's ever, you know, self-harmed, but I can say for me, it was an escape. It took away the emotional pain that I was feeling and replaced it with the physical. And for me, feeling something physical was a million times better than the emotional pain that I was in. Anything that could take me away from what I was feeling is something that I would try. So when I hit 16, I committed my first suicide attempt and I tried to take my life. And I felt so much shame around it. And I'm sure there were other reasons as well, but I felt so much shame around it that I switched schools. I couldn't go back. And there were reasons that my mom took me out of that school and switched me to another school my junior year. This happened, my first attempt happened my sophomore year. But I knew that even if she hadn't taken me out of the school, I wasn't going back because I couldn't face anything that I'd been going through. Right. I couldn't face the people that I thought my friends were that weren't. I couldn't face the people that really were there for me. I couldn't face my teachers. I was just embarrassed. There was a ton of shame, and some of that shame I still hold on to this day, even knowing that there is no shame in the things that I've been through. The logic behind it is there, but there's cognitive dissonance. There's an emotional disconnect between my logic and the way that I actually feel. I think it started to get a little worse around, actually after high school. It peaked after high school for me. I got my official diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder in May of 2018, after I had lost a job, lost an apartment, sold my car, and gotten rid of almost all of my possessions. And at that point, I wasn't in a good mental state. I wasn't thinking clearly, but I had no idea what was going on. This is before I'd actually been diagnosed with bipolar 1. And I just remember I wanted to get rid of everything. I wanted everything to go away. I wanted to get out of my own skin. I wanted to get rid of my clothing. I wanted to get rid of everything that made me me. And I wanted to run away. On that, and that was one side of it. On the other side, here I am thinking, you know, that I can sell all my things and get all this money and move to California and start this new life of my own and do things that I've never done before. Come to find out, I was in something that's called a state of psychosis. And when I did figure that out, there was such a weight lifted off my shoulders. There was a sigh of relief, but there was still a lot of shame, again, at the time with my diagnosis, because it was so new. And because even though my doctor in the past had hinted that there were signs of bipolar, before you're 18, or I guess a certain age, they can't officially give you, won't officially give you a diagnosis because your hormones are changing, you're still developing, there's so much going on in your life already. So when I did finally get that official diagnosis, there was a weight lifted off my shoulders. And ever since then, it's just kind of been an up and down battle. I'm not going to lie to you and say that since I've gotten this diagnosis, just because I know what it is now makes it easier. It doesn't. It's a battle every single day, and I'm still fighting for my life to this moment. One thing I will say, though, is it makes you feel less alone. I found a Facebook group that I've connected with where there's what feels like millions of people with the same exact issues that I have. And it feels amazing, not that I share those problems with those people, but amazing that I can connect to others. I've realized that, you know, my mom has gained a lot of understanding as well, and I've gained some understanding towards her. She's faced, and I'm sure she'll speak, her own mental health battles as well that she's gone through that have allowed her to gain some more understanding with myself. Um, Now at the age of 24, I've been hospitalized 6 times for my mental health. Um, 3 of those times were because of episodes of psychosis or something called mania, which I encourage anyone watching to look into. Mania is an aspect of bipolar disorder, which we call the ups.
Mm-hmm.
But even though it's
Yeah.
the upside, you know, there's a downside. Even though mania
Yes.
is the upside, within mania, there are a lot of downsides.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, as I mentioned, I encourage people to do their own research, as I've had to do for myself. Um, but I've just learned so much in the last few years, and I'm still learning every day about myself and about my diagnosis and about mental health in general and how it impacts people around me as well as myself.
And the one thing is I like about that is, Simone, you took the opportunity to accept and acknowledge that something is going on. And your mom stepped in too as well to accept and acknowledge that it was a connection that made a disconnection, that it was ruining things for the both of you guys. We do understand that moving alone and being transient is a big part of that. Absent parent, many other things, but in that you're receiving the necessary things for the diagnosis. But then again, when we come together on the big part of it, what was the big turnabout that made you guys where you are now? Because the thing is, both have accepted and acknowledged the mental health piece of it. But what made you guys where you are now? And I thank you for being vulnerable. And to those who are listening, this is a very vulnerable conversation. And I want people to understand that this is sometimes happening in your own back door. And how are you going to assess yourself? Because the thing is, even with these two young ladies here talking about it right now, how are we looking at it from our perspective too as well? I don't see these people as what the society say crazy. I see these people as accepting and acknowledging their mental health. Mental health is real. And the positive part about it, they've accepted and acknowledged it and getting the necessary assistance. But for those who out there that are still living in it and want to think that you're not going through something, or you're not happy, or you're not at peace, there is something traumatic that has happened in your life that you have not dealt with. And what do? We either go to drugs, we either go to something else that provides that feeling or that emotion to release from us. Only to know, and I had this conversation with one of my mentees earlier, that guess what? When Simone go home at night, or when Simone is alone by herself, bipolar is standing at the door. Mania's in her bed. When she get in the shower, it's a whole nother different thing. But how is she managing that? And that's where we're getting to the point where her mom comes in and say, look, baby, I understand that. I might have been rough a little while back, but now I've taken to the point of understanding that we are both dealing with something. What does that mean for us? And that's when those handprints start connecting. You guys might just be here right now, but once that connection start coming to where we're touching all those pulses and that hand actually connects together, that the handprints connected, that communication will not stop. Because guess what? Simone is doing the research, Keisha is doing the research. But if nobody is doing the research and trying to find out what is the key point or what are the key factors that going to get those handprints together, we're going to keep separating. We're going to keep going left. Mom's going to be up here. Somebody's going to be here. But when it stops and we have started connecting those handprints from mother to daughter, that's when things can start moving in a better notion. I know you said your mom is going to talk about some of the things about her mental health. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, just respond to that and say that there was a lot more things that happened in between, and I think ultimately I just wanted my daughter to be alive. There
Right.
were multiple suicide attempts. She actually got on a train and went to California, and I had to try to find her. She ran away. I had to have cops involved. There's been some other things that I've done. I've had to call the cops when my daughter was in a manic state, which was uncomfortable. But I would say the biggest, because a lot of people just don't understand. They don't
Right.
understand like why my daughter can't keep a job, or why she has these bouts of anger and she's yelling and, as people would say, going off. And you will never understand until you actually go through it, or you take
Yes.
time to actually learn about what being bipolar is, but not necessarily being bipolar, being a person who is a parent or a family member or a significant other to someone who has a mental health. It's
Right.
not been an easy road at all. And a lot of people just didn't even know what I was going through, didn't even know what Takoa was going through. And so I just encourage people to educate themselves before they come to these conclusions about people that have mental health, because there's been a lot of in between. But I do want to point out that I've had some good friends in my life to support me, but the biggest support has been my sister.
Yes. Thank you, CP Peterson, for being that rock. And sometimes you have to put in that support. Sometimes you have to go that extra mile. And our one thing is, if family can't do it, and if someone can't really catch on to what's going on, then it's a tumbling wall that keeps tumbling down. But the support was there. So thank you, CP Peterson, for definitely reaching out and helping build this family back up together.
Yeah, because I just imagine because my daughter's not she's an only child with me, but I can't imagine if I was the only child. And because not only, and for those who may not know, but bipolar it can be genetic. The majority
Yes.
of the time it is genetic. So there is another family member who we believe has undiagnosed bipolar. And so thinking back, when my sister can probably attest to this too, but thinking back into our childhood, we started just thinking about and realizing that our significant other, there were some issues there. So had I really just understood and known that, then things could have turned out differently. So I struggled with that as well. But just to sort of speak a bit about my own struggles, I would just say, I've had struggles with depression, and more recently, earlier in the year, I was my health was just deteriorating. I was getting sicker. I had multiple, situations where I had, just had to go to the hospital, go to the doctor, just all these medical issues were happening. And so I would say a part of that was just everything that was going on with my daughter, with work, and just, death in the family, things like that. And so throughout my years from being in the military, on and off, and had to really, figure that side of me out. But the difference is, for me, that I could see between my daughter, it's helped me to become a lot more understanding. But a lot of times when people are depressed, it's hard to really pull yourself out of it.
Yes.
And the last time I had a major depressive episode, it was really hard for me to pull myself out. Typically, I've been able to bounce right back. I get depressed a couple of days and I bounce right back. I think the culmination of everything that I had experienced in the last, 7 years, with just a ton of different things, just finally hit me. And when people say, there's such thing as a midlife crisis, I do really believe that now. And I think sometimes you just get, as my daughter was just saying, tired, tired, and you don't even know what to do. And so a lot of people just didn't even know. I didn't want to talk about it. But, what I will say to that is, when you don't let yourself get to that point, if you notice yourself getting to a point where you're becoming a different person and you're losing your joy, you've lost yourself,
Yes.
get help, whatever that help may be. One of the things that I struggle with my daughter is, we had different therapists over the years, but she did not want to do therapy. The other thing I was hesitant about was meds, because I had worked in health advocacy and know the impact that meds can have on teenagers. Brains haven't quite formed all the way as adults, is that it can have the opposite effect and make you more suicidal. We struggle with the meds. My daughter has overdosed and tried to commit suicide through her meds. She's been airlifted, you know, been in an emergency room. I've had to watch her have seizures, you know, all these different things. And so I say all that to say that at some point you have to continue to just move forward. Even though she may have been resistant, I never gave up.
Right.
I never will give up. Like, she's been mad at me, I've been mad at her. I will not give up. So I have pressed on, we have yelled at each other, but I kept over the years, I think therapy will work. I think therapy will work. Then once we finally went through tons of different medication, I was sold on for her, especially seeing her in a manic state. It was one of the worst things that my family and I have had to deal with. And I was like, we got to do meds. So the meds have helped with that. But now the struggle is anxiety and depression and all these other things. But I've encouraged her to seek therapy. She has an awesome therapist now who I'm so grateful to her, because that is my part of my daughter's lifeline. And without her, without the meds, without the psychiatrist, without us having better understanding, without my family, I might not be here. That can take a person, it could take a person down, being a caretaker and then having, you know, mental health issues that you're struggling with, as well as other family members. It can take you completely down. But I'm here to tell people to stay strong and make sure that you have support. And if you don't have support, you can call me. You know, you could call me, you could call Judah, you could call, you know, Simone. I'll happily guide mothers, fathers, whoever through it.
There's also the National Suicide Hotline, which is
yes.
fast. I've called that line at least 3 times in my life, and they have indeed helped me save my life. So, and keyword, helped me save my life, because you have that desire, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I do have a book. I know one of the other things we've talked about, spirituality and you know, and God and being God, but one of my good friends from Department of Labor, who you do know, Judah, actually her church has this group, and she invited us to be a part of that group.
Oh, wow.
As far as being a part of that group, we were led to a group that meets every, I guess, a couple times a week. They were reading a book called Fresh Hope.
I love Fresh Hope. That means it's brand new. It's fresh.
Yes. And it's called Living Well in Spite of Mental Health Diagnosis. By Brad Holst, I believe I'm saying that.
Yes.
He is a pastor who was diagnosed with mental health, and it took a toll. He lost his church, he lost friends, he lost family. He had a very public embarrassment situation with being managed. I mean, this book, even if you're not bipolar, but you're struggling with other mental health issues, it is awesome. It goes to show you that anybody can deal with this. When you have people like Kate Spade and, you know, all the people with money who are struggling, Amy Winehouse, and you know, even Kanye. I posted about Kanye struggling. It doesn't matter the amount of money you have.
Yes.
It does not, it has nothing to do with it. You can have all the money in the world and still that person not want to be here. But you still have to remain strong. You still have to be there to support and do the best you can and understand boundaries. And so that's what I'm trying to do better, is understand boundaries, be more patient, be more accepting, do the research, understand what does this mean to her? Like, how is her day? What is going on in her head that makes her not want to get out of bed, that makes her maybe have, you know, lots of different jobs, or she's upset. You know, I just have to continue to educate myself, continue to set those boundaries and be understanding, and not engage in any type of behavior that's going to make the situation worse, or make something we're going through or something she's going through worse. And so I just want to encourage everyone to just, you know, be more patient, be more calm, be more understanding.
And I thank you for that. But like I used to do with some of my mentees and clients, sometimes for me, I used to tell them, if you don't want to talk right now, grab a stick and just tell me how you feel and put it on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, we have to understand that everybody don't want to talk when you want to talk.
Yeah, and I tend to be forceful, and
I know.
Talk now. Talk when I say talk. What's going
I
on?
need you to talk right now. But the thing is, you being forceful does this to somebody with depression and bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
And then when it's definitely at a manic point, I'm not even hearing you.
Yeah.
I tuned you out when I walked in the door.
I'm sure Simone has tuned me out.
So we have to understand where we are in the physical present, but then again, understand in the mental realm too that everybody is not where we are. And when we stop and think about it, what does this look like to you? And instead of trying to identify how they're feeling, why don't you identify their symptoms?
Yeah.
And what's the methodology with that? There is none, because guess what? If Simone is not saying, I'm feeling some type of way, how would you ever know?
Yeah.
So that communication has to be for real. And even when she's not, I'm telling you, if you look in my house right now, I have so many white boards and white pieces of things going up, because guess what? I have to write it down so it can exude outside of me.
Yeah.
And what does that mean for me? I can't get better if I know I'm feeling a certain type of way. So why can't I give myself some type of boost of, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Let that go. Maybe I need to lay down for a minute or something like that. Sometimes when Simone come over and she just want to just come over, I'm sure y'all cuddled in the bed one day and just said, just hold me.
Yeah.
That's what she needed.
Come sleep, come lay down with me.
That's what she needed. But people don't understand that. Because sometimes if people don't understand it, well, why do you want me to lay down with you? You know I got and at that particular time, she just needed that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, now I definitely pay more attention to her nonverbal cues,
Yes.
Which is important. And, communication, but not overly communicate is important. And I still haven't completely gotten there. And
yes.
Because I'm a mother and I'm just like, well, what's wrong? How can I help? And then on top of that, I'm a Cancer, and Cancers by nature, as my friend Stacy calls me, I'm like, I'm always trying to help people, right?
Yes.
And so by nature, I'm going to want to help my daughter. And so my questions are more of coming from a compassionate place of,
right.
How are you doing? I want to make sure you're okay. What's wrong? What's going on? I see the non-verbal cues, and you're looking sad, you're looking depressed. So then I come and I'm asking all these questions. Well, now I have to sort of backtrack and just let her be, and just she's not gonna harm herself.
So watch this,
something like that.
Watch this, Keisha. Watch this. Simone, how are you feeling?
I'm okay.
You hear that? Look at that tone. Okay being what?
Content, I guess, but
okay. In her contentment, she's there. Conversation is done. Because guess what? At least she's answered basic questions. But then again, if we keep pounding and pounding and pounding to, well, what does content mean? Because you know what? I just said,
I do dig deep.
And then she done went all the way. You're over here. Simone is still right here. As I'm content, girl. What's wrong with you? Yeah. What kind of day did you have? Now she's concerned about what you did. Because clearly somebody missed the train.
Yes.
You're at the caboose and she's at the front trying to build her engine. So we have to understand that signal she's giving. But let's start doing this. Let's start saying help her. Let's stop that. And let's start supporting and guiding her.
That's a good point.
Start supporting Simone. Because guess what? She don't need your help. She needs your support. She needs your guidance. It's still mother-daughter, but the thing is, how we gonna connect those handprints? We can't connect them like this. Guess what? It takes two. And we have to support. We have to unify the handprints. We can't sit here and continue to be at a point of what you doing, why you doing, what it up, da da da, where you going, what you make, da da da, ba da ba. And next thing Simone like this, wham. She done went down already because you are pounding her with everything that she done turned around in her brain and everything that's going on in her life. And then now it's 1,000 more questions coming from my mom.
Yeah.
Well, look, girl, can you at least give me a cup of coffee so I can chill for a moment? That's all I want. That's all she needed. Or, Mom, can you kiss me on my cheek? That's all I wanted. I just came over here to see your pretty face. That's it. Not hear your mouth. And we have to understand that, but we're constantly digging. We're constantly digging. And how does that feel for Simone? Simone is at a point of, I should have just stayed at home. Because you're not providing me with what I need. And that's supporting guidance. And constantly, and what I'm telling friends that's online, constantly in our friendships too as well, stop pouring all that stuff into your friends. Stop pouring all that stuff into your friends, because what it's doing is it's turning them to bring more negative on you too as well. And what we're going to do is go in 2021, this is for everybody that's listening, that we're going to start supporting more. Start providing guidance. What does that mean? I'm going to provide support for Keisha. If Keisha called me and is like, well, what do you think I should do with Simone? I can't tell her what to do with Simone, but I support her in her endeavors in supporting Simone. See, we're too busy looking for an answer, but then we're still giving out questions that we'll never get the answers to. So stop beating up your head trying to develop questions that you want answers for.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to happen. Because guess what? Simone is still trying to figure out who Simone is, right? Simone is still trying to figure out what her desires are at her young age, right? Simone is still trying to figure out the unknown, because Simone is going to be great, but is Simone ready to be great right now, dealing with this, that, and stacking up her blocks of stumbling blocks? But that doesn't disfigure her or trumps her for what she's want to be, because guess what? She's still trying to move forward. But once she understands and figure out that whole piece, and that piece is like this, it starts connecting and she continues to build up. She continues to build up. But once she gets to that point and she understands the whole research of it all and understand her pieces and her puzzle she's putting together, what about that puzzle? It still got some missing pieces.
Yeah.
What does that mean for Simone? What does that mean for you guys' relationship? That together you should be building that piece. Together you're building that puzzle. Separately, you're building that own connection that is missing. So in it, we definitely want to continue your therapy. We want to continue your relationship. But in the communication piece, how are we talking? How are we communicating? How are we doing? Understand, communication is the first and foremost thing. Because guess what? If Keisha keep hollering here and Simone keep lying here and saying, I don't know what's going on with her, confusion is there.
Yeah.
But when we stop and start aligning that communication, where it's looking like this, and Keisha has lowered her tone just a little bit, because Simone is not there with her tone, and understand that we'll keep on going and we're at a right tone, even though you're hating what Simone is saying, that you're still keeping your tone. And the hands start coming together, and then they start turning upward. And then the fingers start connecting. But if those fingers never connect and we still have a disconnect where we're backing up again, it's still a plausibility that we can come together, still and connect those fingers again. But then again, you have to understand Keisha, Simone have to understand Simone. So that's Keisha understanding her part of the spectrum, Simone realizing her part of the spectrum. But then again, it's still a mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Patience and understanding and communication is what I'm gonna stick to. And I'll start using the word support versus
Yes.
help, because I think I come from a place of always trying to help. How can I help you? What do you want me to do? How can I make things better? But I think I just need to do
Listen to what you said. How can I make things better? Let's change
right.
that to how can we make things better?
Mm-hmm.
You have to include her.
Yeah, definitely.
You're doing a self. You just including her because you want to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
We have to take it to the support of how can we make it better? Because if there is no I in team, but there is a me, make it a unity. And in that unity, we want to continue doing the best thing for you and I. Are there any questions or any comments from the audience? I know this has been very, very a vulnerable conversation, but mothers and daughters need to hear this. Families need to hear this because this is happening in families and there's a disconnect. Generational curses are being healed through this right now. Because guess what? If we don't start talking about it, then the biggest problem is people are going to still do this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Communication is the key. Trust is the key. And also understanding reality. Because sometimes we go beyond reality. Well, why is she doing this? What is she doing this for? Why she need to stop? That's not reality. Reality is Simone was cutting. Simone did this. Simone, that's reality. But in your head, why? Reality is what's present. We have to be in the present and the now.
Yeah, definitely.
So any questions, any comments from the audience? Understand we'll be doing with CP Peterson at 4:30. 5 o'clock. What is it? 6 o'clock. I'm so backwards. 6 o'clock p.m., 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be doing cooking with CP Peterson, the 40-year-old vegan. Definitely stay tuned. It'll be on Facebook Live on this page too as well. What are some of the things that you can tell people that can give them some understanding of where you guys are right now?
Well, definitely for my friends and family, because I think that people just don't have an understanding. You have to educate yourself. So I guess in closing, take a little time to learn. This has been a really tumultuous previous year, and more people are suffering from mental health issues than ever.
Yes.
It's a fact. Suicide rates are probably going, up. Hospital mental health, rates are probably going up. And so have a bit more compassion and patience and understanding, even if you've never dealt with that specific issue, whether it be schizophrenia, OCD, bipolar, depression, and you know someone that does. Don't just jump to conclusions.
Right.
Hit yourself, respect the boundaries, understand, sometimes you have to I have to be the bigger person, because my mental health issue may not be her mental health issue. And so, just have more compassion. I think people need to go into 2021,
yes,
have some more understanding. And I hope that 2020 taught us to be more family friendly.
Yes.
And just learn each other better. I used to always tell people when we were stationed in Germany, the families in Germany, they stick together, right? And they live together and they eat together, they fellowship together. Then, coming back to the US after being overseas for so long, it's the complete opposite, where, this coronavirus has forced people to be
and
family-oriented.
Keeson, we have a question right quick for Simone, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Simone, were you afraid when you first opened up to your mother? And the second part of that, because she asked, because she still haven't opened up to her mother. And she said, were you afraid when you first opened up to your mother? And how did you do it?
I was, yes, because I was afraid of judgment from anyone, honestly, but especially from my mom, because she's the last person that I want to disappoint. However, I had to recognize the fact that she literally brought me into this world. And because of that, she has my best interest at heart. And now I know that I'm blessed and I'm very lucky because not everyone has the relationship that I have with her. And in the event that you don't have that same closeness with your parents, I still highly encourage you to be open with them because they can learn to develop a level of understanding. Just to give an example, my father is very close-minded when it comes to mental health, or at least from my perspective. He was very close-minded when it came to mental health, and it didn't seem, from my perspective again, to understand a lot of the things that I was going through. It felt like he would just brush me off. However, at this point, my dad's actually been a part of my healing process. He's talked to my therapist, he's talked to my doctors, he's developed a level of understanding. And this coming from a man who before would just, be like, suck it up and, stop crying and, whatever you're going through, it's not that serious. Right. Through worse. He's one of those people. But he doesn't do that to me anymore. Now he understands that, hey, this is something that I have to deal with. This is something that I struggle with at times. And this is something that I have to heal from. And that healing is going to take time. And there are going to be some setbacks. But for every setback that you have, you take a few more steps forward. Because of that, there's always going to be progress. So I highly encourage the person who asked the question to open up to, it doesn't have to be your mother. It can be your best friend. It can be a teacher. I know I had teachers that supported me when I was in high school. It can be a coworker that you trust. It can be just somebody that you trust that is willing to support you, that you can open up to, because it feels so much better when you have someone to talk to.
And I thank you for that. And even in opening up, one thing is that you still have to understand that some people don't have the knowledge and the knowledge base of what mental health is. So some things that I like to do for clients and mentees is go take them a pamphlet or something and start discussing what your diagnosis is. And not saying that it's your diagnosis, but get a feel of how they're responding to you just talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the thing is, some people don't have the knowledge. And one thing is what they do is, well, you should, and you don't want to feel like someone is closing you out once you opened up to them. So I don't know where that person is, because I know I'm from Mississippi. Some people just don't have the knowledge of what mental health is in Mississippi. And they just say, you're crazy.
Yeah.
So one thing is, I tell them to take it in a soft approach too as well. If you take a pamphlet and just start talking about it, so they can start reading and want to get more knowledge about it, because some people just don't want to learn.
They don't, and they don't understand. And
yes.
I like the pamphlet idea, because even friends, I think now for me, for different friends or acquaintances, I'm just going to start printing out material, because people just really are extremely ignorant around it. Sorry for using that word, but I was ignorant. I just didn't know. And so sometimes I don't always feel like talking about it. My daughter certainly doesn't always feel like talking about it. For those who are uneducated, even if they're family members and friends, there's a wealth of information out there. Get them a book about it, print out materials for free.
Yes.
Just hand it to them.
Use this app called The Mighty. That's pretty cool. That's focused on mental health. That's another really good one that has a bunch of stories. You can write your own stories, connect with other people, get some ideas.
The Facebook group that we joined, it has like 60,000 people in it, and all of them pretty much have bipolar. So, and this is
and Keisha, they definitely said in the comments what Simone said, you're so strong and brave. So definitely thank you, Simone. Thank you, Keisha. But continue on. I want to just say that comment. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no worries. I just want to encourage people to educate themselves. I think the biggest example for me here in the last year was, everybody knows Kanye West, and everybody was slamming him about acting, and it actually angered me. I actually posted on it, because I was like, how dare people just start going off on this gentleman? Yes, he's a public figure, but Kanye West has similar symptoms I've seen in people who are bipolar. I don't know if he's bipolar, but I know I've seen the symptoms.
Yes.
And so instead of bashing him online, I encourage people to educate themselves.
Yes.
Have some empathy and some compassion, because yes, he's a public figure, but he's also a human being with
Yes.
with children who are going to have to, you know, possibly be caretakers. And so don't bash, try to understand and know that this is a serious issue. And I would hate for him to be the next celebrity like some of the others who we lost in the last several years, to end his life.
Right.
So I really pray and hope that everyone who needs the help gets the help that they get, because it's an unfair situation, and I don't wish it on anyone. I don't wish having any kind of significant issue on anyone, but I equate mental health just like I equate it to cancer. You have to treat the illness. You have to treat it just as you would cancer. So if you have compassion for someone who was diagnosed with breast cancer, you need to also have the same level of compassion for someone that has a mental health issue. It's one and the same. They're all illnesses. And so let's just learn to do better.
And I want to say too as well, because I want you guys to understand this, and everybody that's listening right now, that hurt people hurt people.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean? Even in the relationship they had, they were hurting each other, because no one knew of mom's diagnosis, no one knew of Simone's diagnosis. So it was a clash. And they didn't even know they were hurting each other. So I want people to understand, and I'm going to say this very candid, and I have to get close up to the screen. If you've gone through a traumatic experience in your life, and please raise your hand if you have not. I know everybody has had a traumatic experience in their life. Some traumatic experience, whether it was death, whether it's whatever. Please go and talk to someone, because those traumatic experiences, once they build up, become some of the mental health and other things that start happening in your life. And you wonder why people are not talking to you. You wonder why you're feeling a certain type of way, because guess what? All of this has compressed inside of you and then got this big old ball of depression, this big old ball of anxiety, this big old ball of whatever is going on, because someone has not dealt with it.
Yeah. And I wanted to just add one point. I actually was just reviewing some stuff just the other day and realized, so I don't know if people know there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. My daughter has bipolar 1. Bipolar 2 is a little less, I don't even want to say severe, but it's just different. But PTSD can cause bipolar 2.
And I wanted to speak on that. One of a couple of the things that I noticed in the peak of my diagnosis, when I officially got diagnosed, a few months prior, I'd actually been sexually assaulted. And a couple months prior to that, I'd been physically assaulted by a stranger on the street. So I had been going through a number of things, and I've experienced trauma in my teenage years as well, going into adulthood. But those two things led up to me being diagnosed about a year or so later.
So traumatic events can trigger.
Yes.
They can trigger
mental health
Mm-hmm.
and episodes. And so I don't think people really get that. And I think if people understood that a bit more, because anyone could be in a situation where they go through PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so that's why I'm sitting here, we're being open so that we can encourage people to get the help that they need. Don't let it fester. Don't internalize it.
Right.
Sure, you get help.
And it can happen to anyone. It's not one of the things that I used to think about PTSD is that it was just I used to, in my head, call it the military disease, because I thought it was something that only people in the military could get who used to, who would go overseas and see some traumatic things and come back. But no, PTSD can happen to anybody. It can happen walking down the street. It can happen to your aunt. It can happen to your friend, anyone that you know.
So what I want people to do, especially from my perspective, if you don't know about mental health, start researching it now in 2021.
Yes.
Because in the present state we're in, the pandemic, with the isolation and a lot of things, that you're going to start experiencing some of these things. Because this is a traumatic event that happened. How has it affected you? How has it affected you? or has it affect you? So with every cause, there's an effect. But what are you doing to get the necessary assistance or support that you need? I don't like the word help, and that's just me personally, because help means that they're doing it by themselves. The person that came to help you. When you look for assistance, that gives a notion that we're both in this together. When you're looking for support, that means support, meaning that a house cannot stand unless it has the support. And you got to have two beings to make that support happen. So I'm going with is next time or in the interim, start looking up, start educating yourself. Start looking up like these two young women did. Start putting that piece together. Start putting those handprints together where we can hear each other's heartbeat again. Let's start looking at the mother-daughter relationship. Let's start looking at that friendship. Let's start looking at that parenting. Let's start looking at who's right and who's wrong. No one. Let's start looking at communicating more because it's absent. We have to stop putting praying, and not saying that praying doesn't work, but if both of you guys do not have the desire of that prayer, then that prayer is not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. It's not going.
You got to put in work.
That's just your praying.
Yeah.
You want fresh hope. What does fresh hope look like? Mm-hmm. Because the thing is, if Keith is hoping for this and Simone is hoping for this, that's not fresh hope. That fresh hope should be a unified parallel hope that both of them trying to reach that same goal. And if that doesn't happen, we have to continue to understand that life is important, and how we lead life and how they're going to keep communicating with each other, how they're going to keep researching together, that's important. And even in another disability moment, we're going to go out the mode of mental health. Start communicating that disability that you have outside of mental health, because that's important. Start telling people if you're going through situations of woman or situations of a man. Start telling people that, because we will never know. And stop expressing that, oh, well, if somebody knows, they're going to feel this certain type of way. Well, how do you know how they're going to feel until you tell them? Right. And that's important. We're in our own mind. We're in our own way. We got to start releasing those behaviors, because I'm going to tell you, like people say in the South, what's done in our house stays in our house. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why hurt people, because we can't tell anybody because you told me not to. Yeah. But look, we have a mother and daughter team here that's telling us that we need to do this. So they're going outside of their house and telling the world, worldwide, global, that we need to talk. We need to start educating each other. So on behalf of Keisha and Simone, together we need to take this stand to start educating ourselves on mental health. We need to start educating ourselves on the next steps of what we need to define as our communication. What do we find as our anxiety? What do we find as this? Because if no one knows, how can they help or support and assist us? That's right. Tell a friend. So I thank the both of you guys, and I'm sorry, CP Peterson. It's 5 p.m. Central Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. So it'll be coming up in just a second. So I want you guys to tune in to the 40-Year-Old Vegan. I thank you guys for being vulnerable.
Thank you for having me.
Because I'm going to give this disclaimer that love is in the air when I see this happen. And I know you guys want to continue this love and this communication. Mm-hmm. We're going to put the National Suicide Prevention thing at the bottom of this for those who might want to prevent from having suicide ideation and things like that. We're actually going to put who you can contact for mental health resources too as well. But I understand that you guys need to reach life coaches, therapists, and things like that too as well, because you can't do this on your own. And talking to your friend is not going to help you either. Because, you know, you tell all your friends your business, then they go and tell somebody else, now your world is out on the street. Start talking to people that are professional and also people that can take you to your next level, to that next task, to that next goal. Those are the people that are going to help you. Are there any last words, anything that people can look you up? Give us Instagram tags, social media tags. What can they hit you up at? Because I know we have young women that want to talk to you guys. And
Yeah,
maybe
of course.
Start a mother-daughter kind of thing. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a mother-daughter. Let's chat. Let's talk about this.
Yes, we can maybe do a next time do a Q&A session and just welcome questions, have some questions prepared. But you can reach me. I'm also a realtor, so you can reach me at The Property Warrior. That's pretty much my social media handle through Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I'm also on LinkedIn for those of you on LinkedIn.
You can reach me on Instagram at _CYMONEC_. So that's _Simone C_. And that's my Instagram. And then I have Facebook, Simone. Just type in Simone Carter and you can find me and add me there.
And I just want y'all to know that Simone is a singer and she has a beautiful voice. Go to her page and we're going to take her to the next level. She don't know it yet, but we're going to take her there. I honor both of you guys because number one is this was a very vulnerable conversation. And I like how you guys displayed it too as well. For those who are listening, this is Judah Bernard, the Wisdom Dialogue and the Motivational Warrior. Understand if you're in a mental health crisis, we're going to put the 800 number down at the bottom. And also, if you're about to or need some suicidal help, if you're in suicidal ideation, we will put the National Suicide Prevention Hotline too as well. Understand that mental health is real. I want to thank Simone and both Keisha for giving us the opportunity. And we're going to set up another place where they come on this platform and have question and answers. So I want all of those young ladies that are listening to this to bring your mother, to bring your daughter, so you guys can have general conversation on how these two opened up and realized that the disconnect is what caused the connection to reconnect into the handprints. So mental health connected them back together again.
Well said.
So love you guys. I really
love you too.
We're definitely going to have another topic. So be looking out for Keisha and Simone because they're the subject matter experts now. So if you guys want to definitely listen to them, place some comments down, and definitely we want to get them back on to have a question and answer because this is needed not only in the African American community but worldwide because people are steady arguing, people are steady having discourse in the family relationships. Love you guys, as I say. Tell a friend, tell a foe, tell your spouse. Heck, tell everyone. We'll see you in a couple of minutes as we're with the 40-year-old vegan. I know I have too much energy for you guys. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.